Hi there, it's Tracy Kiernan from stepbysteppainting.net, and this acrylic painting tutorial is going to show you how to paint dandelion wishes on an 11 by 14 inch canvas. So we have 3 dandelions, we have grass, and we have little dandelion seeds flying and 2 little ladybugs in this painting. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. All the brushes, paints, supplies, everything is listed in the description of this video. I'm going to be using this round mop blender brush. This is actually a makeup brush. I use this for quite a few of my tutorials. If this is the first one that you're watching of mine, it's just a cheap little e.l.f. brand makeup brush, and it's used to create a soft blended background. My colors that I'm loading on my palette are titanium white, light blue permanent. You'll also need cobalt and light blue violet. The cobalt, and so this one's the light blue violet, but the cobalt is kind of a similar color to the light blue violet. If you want to omit one of the top bottom blues, the light blue violet or the cobalt, you can to kind of simplify the palette, but I'm going to just kind of have fun and experiment with those different colors of blue. So our background consists of this bright blob area in the upper right, and it's blended outwards to the lighter blue colors. So I'm going to start by loading my brush in the white. I didn't load my brush in the water, by the way. The brush is dry, and I loaded it in just the white, and I'm just doing that on the very end of my brush and painting in circular strokes, adding quite a thick layer of white there, just because that white is going to start helping us blend a bit. So then I loaded it into the light blue and the white without rinsing my brush, so both light blue and white. I'm going to start on the outer part of that white blob that I painted, and I'm going to gently work inwards. So we're blending by doing circle strokes, so we're working that paint to blend, and that transition zone where that white goes to the light blue, we want to kind of give that area a little bit more attention to let it blend. We want to try also not to over blend. So we want our upper right corner area in this background to be brighter, and our colors are going to gradually get a little bit darker as we go outwards. I'm going to add more of the light blue permanent to my brush, and I'm going to continue to apply that to the canvas, working my way outwards. The blue is now darker in this area because it's not mixing with the white, but I'm going to give the transition zone a little extra attention by blending that lighter blue with our light blue permanent color. So I'm just going to keep painting in circular strokes, going in a kind of a circular direction, going all around that big white blob that we started with. And so I'm going to start introducing some of these other blues. I'm going to grab some more of the light blue permanent, and I'm going to grab a little bit of this cobalt here in just a second, just adding some more of that light blue so that I could blend our cobalt into it. So a little bit of cobalt on the tip of my brush. Cobalt's a dark color compared to our light blue, so I actually mixed the light blue with the cobalt on the palette a little bit. If you need to add some white into your cobalt as well, if it's showing up too dark, you can do that. But again, I'm going on the outside of it, and then I'm working the transition zone, giving that part a little extra attention so that it will blend with our light blue permanent color. And you can experiment with this if you want to start adding some more light blue violet in that area, or if you want to switch and kind of mix the colors a little bit. It doesn't have to be exactly this way. You can just kind of do your own thing with the colors. It's just the background of this painting. The focus of the painting is going to be the dandelions. You can see how dark that is compared to our lighter color. And so I'm going to have to add some more white in there to get that to blend back lighter. So lots of white in that area. Getting that white, just being very careful not to put too much of that darker blue up there. Then I'm going to lose my big white blob area that I want. I'm just going to go in there and just very gently blend that up. There we go. So that our darker color does not become so drastic against that lighter color. And I'm just going to kind of keep blending out, painting in circular directions, and I'm just going to keep adding more of our light blue violet color and our cobalt on the outer parts of the painting. You want to be careful if you go back and try to blend some of the areas that you started with. For example, in the upper right area, that's most likely dry and not workable paint. So if you feel like you need to go back and blend that, you would have to add more of your lighter colors to that and possibly rinse your brush off and dry it and then go back and add some lighter colors. But I just recommend trying not to overblend. So I'm taking my color and kind of making it go a little bit closer to the lighter area, keeping in mind not to touch too much of that lighter area because that's a beneficial part of the painting, the bright light area where our little dandelion seeds are going to be flying to. You want to go ahead and let this background dry and rinse off your blender brush. We won't be needing that brush anymore, so you can go clean it and kind of set it to the side. You want your background to be dry before doing this drawing portion. I will be demonstrating how to draw the dandelions with a chalk pencil. If you don't have a chalk pencil, you can use a regular drawing pencil. I'm going to start in the lower left area and I'm going to do the dandelion leaves. So dandelions have these kind of pointy triangular leaves and the sides of the leaves have little curved triangular shapes that point downwards. So I'm just sketching out that shape. Kind of looks like a flame, like if we were drawing like a little design flame or something like that. So I'm just doing the pointy parts and going downwards. So there's my first leaf, and there is a traceable for this painting if you want to skip the drawing portion of this. And I did a little line down the middle. This one, I'm going to start by doing the line first. Maybe it's easier to do the middle line first. And then I'm going to do this leaf is going to be slanted and angled toward the right, but the sides of the leaves, same thing, the little curves that point downwards. And then I'm going to do the stem. So in between both of those leaves, I'm going to do a curvy line that goes up very high up into the canvas area, well over halfway up the canvas. And then this part's a little hard to see because it's a lighter area, but I'm doing the little leaves that form on the bottom of the bud, and then a little oval for the bud of the dandelion. So the leaves point downwards. And I'm not going to draw all the dandelion seeds, but I will be tracing a circle in a later step to help with the formation of the dandelion seeds, and you'll see that in a little bit. So I did another dandelion stem lower, and this one's not as big and not as up high, but I did the stem, the pointy leaves that point down, and then a little oval for the bud. This one is going to be a little bit higher up than the other one, and feel free to add more or less or make them go in different directions if you feel creative. So just do the little circle / oval for the bud. It can be a circle or an oval, and then the little pointy down leaves below the bud. And then this one's going to have another dandelion leaf, so I'm going to go ahead and draw that one in. I won't be drawing all the grass blades in, those will be painted in by hand. So next I'm going to be using a compass that has a pencil attached to it. So you can use any compass if you have a compass at home, or you can find a circle to trace. So basically I'm taking this and I'm just lightly making a circle around that. The middle point would be the bud that we drew, but it doesn't have to be exactly center. It just needs to be a circle. That circle is going to be a guideline for when we paint our dandelion seeds in, so that it goes in a circular direction. So that circle is going to be really helpful. Again, if you don't have a compass, you can just find any circle. That first one I did, the diameter of that is about 3 to 4 inches. These ones are smaller, about 2 to 2.5 inches wide in diameter, and you can change the diameter of the circles as well if you want them to be bigger or smaller, depending on how you drew your dandelions. But again, just drawing a circle with the center point, the bud, you can draw that circle all the way around, and that circle is going to be very helpful for when we paint our little seeds in. Next, we're going to start with the greenery part of our dandelions, and I'm going to load my palette with Hooker's Green Hue Permanent. If you don't have this exact green, you can use another green. I like to use this particular green for grass and leaves. And I'm also going to load Naphthol Crimson on my palette as well. I like to mix a little red into my greens to make it a little bit more natural looking, and the red also helps to darken our green if we need to darken it. The white is going to be used, so this is titanium white. The white will be used to add highlight to our green to make it lighter in some areas. So red, green, and white. And then I will be using this number 8 round brush. This number 8 round brush is from the Princeton Velvet Touch set of brushes. It's got a very fine point to it, so I can do thick and thin lines. I love this particular brush. I use it often. So I'm going to mix almost equal parts of red and green, a little bit higher proportion of green to red, and it's going to make your green look dark. And so we're going to do the stem starting at the top, and our stem is thinner at the top and thicker at the bottom. So I'm going to start at the top with a little bit of a light pressure on the brush, and as I go down to stroke my stem, I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on my brush so that my stem gets thicker. If you notice your paint is not flowing as well, you can add just a tad bit of water in there. You don't want too much water on the paint because we don't want to turn it to watercolors. We want the paint to be somewhat thicker, but a little bit flowy. So I'm doing a second coat of this stem. Again, thin at the top and a little bit thicker at the bottom. And then I'm going to grab a little tiny bit of white on the tip of the brush, and just on the right side of the stem, I'm just going to very gently add that white in there, being very gentle about it, not to let that white take over, just one stroke in there to add that color variation and that highlight. The leaves and the bud are going to be painted next. So these little pointy leaves that are pointing down, I'm going to paint those in with the green that's on my brush already. So again, it's pointy at the bottom and thick at the top. So we want to change the pressure of the brush. We want to release the pressure if we're going to a point and press a little bit harder to get the thicker stroke at the base of the little leaf that's pointing downwards. So we can vary this if we want. If we want to add a little bit more red to it to make it darker, or if we want to add white to it to make it lighter, or if we want to just do the Hooker's green without the red or the white. So I'm going to paint each of those in solid. For the bud of this dandelion, I'm going to add a little bit more red to it. It's almost equal parts. It almost turns brown when you do equal parts of the red and the green. This one's a little bit darker, so I'm just going to outline that circle / oval shape that we drew, paint it in solid. Then I'm going to add burnt sienna to my palette. You can use any brown. I just happen to grab this reddish brown color, and I'm going to use that to paint the base of all the little seeds of our dandelion. So I'm just going to wipe the brush off. I don't have to rinse it off, and just wipe it off with the towel. Add some white into that brown to lighten it up. So about equal parts of the white to the brown. And I'm just going to do little tiny diagonal strokes all on the bud. So these are going to be the base of all the little seeds. We don't have to do the base of every single little seed. We can just do a bunch of little tick marks in there. We don't have to cover all the green up, but just enough to make it look like our little bud is now spiky. Those are the base of our little dandelion seeds. And then I'm just going to repeat these steps for the other two dandelions in our painting. So I'm going to rinse my brush off so I can kind of start over with the colors here. But again, start with the green with a little bit of red, do the stem, and then I will do a little highlight on the stem, and then I'll do the little leaves that are poking down from the bud, and then I'll paint the bud in, and then I'll do the little brown bases of the dandelion seeds. So I'm going to go quiet here for a little bit while I do the same steps for these two dandelion stems. Next, I'm going to paint the leaves, and with the leaves, I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush off to start with some fresh colors here. So rinse the number 8 round brush off. I'm going to mix a whole bunch of white into my green. So this green on my palette is that green would mix with the red, and I'm adding some white to it, so it looks like a kind of a very natural green that's kind of light, kind of a grassy green almost. And I'm just going to take that and fill in my leaves. So the nice thing about this round brush is it might take a bit of practice to do this, but I'm actually starting at the tip of these leaves and doing the little point, and then I'm changing the pressure and kind of pressing hard to get the thicker part. So I'm going to load my brush in the green, a different amount of that green. I grabbed some of that darker green on there, but that's okay. We can create color variation in this by loading our brush in different amounts of the lighter green and the darker green. And so I'm just utilizing this brush here to do the thick and thin to get the points on the bottom. Kind of doing it on purpose where the right part of the leaf is a little bit darker. That's why I'm adding some of the darker colors as blending with that lighter color on the left, but you don't have to do it that way. You can paint it solid. You can let the colors blend and do their own thing. Yours is going to look different from mine, and that's okay. Grabbed a little bit of white on the tip of the brush, and I'm going to do a line down the middle starting at the point, and I'm just going to take that line, go down the middle, and we have the middle section of our leaf. And I can go in here if I want. I could add some highlights to this, just let that white kind of blend with some of the colors. I can go back and add some shadowing with the red, so you can be as advanced or as simplistic as you want with these leaves. I'm going to go ahead and start painting my next leaf in over here on the left. Same process with the white, the lighter green by adding the white to our green. I'm going to change the direction of this because this leaf is running into my dandelion here. And I don't really want it to run into the dandelion. So I could erase all this if I want to, or I can erase it later if I didn't want to erase it later, if I just wanted to kind of paint my own leaf in and wait for the painting to dry and erase that later. For some reason with this chalk pencil, I found it a little bit trickier to erase on this canvas board. It might be because the board is a little bit harder than the canvas. So some of the chalk was a little bit harder to erase, but I did have success later erasing it with like a soft baby wipe. So a little bit of water helps to erase that chalk pencil if you can't get it off. So instead of redrawing my leaf, I'm just going to hand paint it in and just making the direction of it go a little bit different and not go over my dandelion over on the right as much. I'm doing kind of the same thing, loading my brush in different amounts of the green and the white and the light green, and letting those colors blend on the canvas, doing the curvy strokes to form the shape of the leaf. So I start out thin and then I press hard to get that thicker stroke, and that one's going to overlap our stem. But later on, if we decide we want our stem to show up in the front, we could always paint over that stem. Grabbed a little bit of that darker green and just going in there and adding some more color to the edges of the leaf. I'm going to repeat that same process with our leaf over here on the left. So doing the different variations of the green, doing curvy strokes to fill in that leaf shape. And I am going to go quiet here for a little bit as I do this step. I did also change this one different from my original drawing, the chalk drawing. I made it a little bit shorter, and then my side leaf parts kind of went in a different direction, and that's okay. We can erase our chalk lines later. Then I'm going to do my white line that goes down the middle of this leaf. I can add a little bit of highlight with the white and let it kind of blend with the greens over on the right. And then I'm going to decide that my stem is going to be overlapping our bottom leaf. So I'm grabbing more of that red, mixing it with the green to make it darker, and going back over the stem so that it is in front of that back leaf. Next, I will be doing the grass blades. So I'm going to load my palette with the Hooker's Green. So freshen up the green on your palette. So the grass blades are pretty much the same colors we've been using. So a different variation of green, making it dark with the red, adding white to it. I'm going to start by adding white to my Hooker's Green hue and pretty much whatever was left on my brush. You want to water this grass down slightly so you get this effect. It's got to be kind of thin. It helps it to flow, but also helps you kind of control the paint a little bit better. So I'm using the very tip of my brush and I'm stroking upwards. So each grass blade, I'm starting at the bottom, stroking upwards and kind of releasing the pressure of the brush. So it's almost like you're flicking the brush, but not flicking it too hard. And then using different variations of that green. So when I go to reload the brush, I'm grabbing some more green one time. Maybe I grab a little bit more white another time. Maybe I'll grab a little bit darker green another time. I'm doing some variations of colors. So just flicking the brush from the bottom upwards, going in different directions. So it creates that point because you're releasing the brush. You're pressing kind of hard at first, and then you're releasing the pressure as it goes upwards. Diagonal strokes going in different directions. You can overlap your stems if you want. You can overlap your leaves. So try to create a variety of colors and angles and a variety of heights too. You can make some of the grass blades go up a little bit higher if you want. And that's it for the grass blades for now. I will probably add some more later. I'm going to go ahead and erase any leftover chalk lines. So you can use the eraser on your chalk pencil. You could also use a very soft baby wipe to erase your chalk lines. And so then, or pencil lines, like if you drew with a pencil, you can use a regular eraser. Then we're going to do the fun part of this painting, adding the little dandelion seeds, and we need some fresh titanium white for that because they are all going to be pure white, no shading or anything like that, just white. So this is kind of fun because it's simple. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. And when we do our dandelion seed lines, we're going to start from the bud. We're going to do a line that goes to the circle. And so the rule is we can't go outside the circle. That's why we drew those circles earlier. So I'll demonstrate that again. I'm still using the number 8 round brush, by the way. It's got that nice tip on it with the titanium white to do your diagonal line. And then on the end of your diagonal line, you're just doing little tiny diagonal lines that are kind of going in all angular directions. One thing about this dandelion is that it can't go out of the circle, but we can do shorter ones inside of the circles. You can see I did one shorter one in there. So they don't all have to go to the edge of the circle. They could go a little bit lower than that. So this one right here went a little bit lower. This one is going to go to the end of the circle. So you do your line, and your line doesn't have to be perfectly straight. It can be kind of curved if you want it to be kind of curved. And you're just going to keep doing this. It takes a while to do. It's a lot of little seeds. You're painting each of those individual seeds. So that one. You are allowed to make it go over some of the leaves or the stem because it's going in that circle. Remember, we drew the circle and it kind of went around and covered up part of our stem and our bud area. So again, just as long as you're not going outside the circle, if you just keep doing this, it's going to form that dandelion, really pretty delicate dandelion shape. If you want it to look like it's a little bit bare, like a lot of the seeds have already fallen off, you don't have to fill it up, or you can keep going and you can make it completely full. That's up to you. You can have some of your seeds overlap other seeds. This one is overlapping some of the leaves on the bottom. I'm going to have the seeds kind of go all in a circle, and some of the seeds don't go all the way to the circle, some go kind of to the middle. So I'm going to go quiet here for a bit while I finish up this dandelion, and I can provide you more steps as they come up. And you're pretty much going to repeat that same technique with each of your dandelions. So these circles that we drew are a little bit smaller than that other circle, but as long as you're not going outside of the circle, it's going to form that circular shape. So same thing, long ones that go to the end of the circumference of the circle, and some shorter ones in there as well. Next, I'm going to do the seeds that are flying in the upper right area. And you could pretty much do seeds flying anywhere you want in this painting, but I'll demonstrate how I did these. I'm mixing about equal parts of the burnt sienna with titanium white, and I'm going to make a thick stroke that's kind of a like a little, like imagine like a flat flying saucer shape, or just kind of like a thick stroke that's a little bit more rounded in the middle but pointy on the sides. So I'm going to do 3 of these. That's the base shape of the seed that's going to be flying, and this one's going to be kind of curved towards the right. So it kind of depends on the direction the seed is going to be flying. And then I'm going to load my palette with some Mars Black. This is the first time we're using black in this painting. And then without rinsing the brush, I'm going to grab a little bit of black right there on the tip of the brush and just add black just on the left side of the seeds, on the base of the left side. So the very, very bottom left of those seeds are black. Going to rinse, and I'm going to do the white part of this. So rinse, dry, nice point to the brush because these lines are going to be thin. And we're going to do just like what we did inside the flower, only they're going to be individual ones flying. So one line, and then the little edges of it going in a diagonal, little diagonal strokes, and then you have your flyaway seed. So I'm going to do that again for the other 2, and you can kind of change the direction of this. So this one went upwards, so I did the line going upwards, and then do the little diagonal lines. And then if you want, you can add a little bit of white kind of on one side of it for a highlight. You don't have to because it kind of loses the contrast there because the background is so light. So like I said, if you want to paint more flying seeds other places in your painting, that's up to you. There's lots of areas we can put those depending on how you want your painting to look. Just going back over these and with another coat of that white. And then I also went in and added some more white to some of my dandelions to kind of fill them up a little bit. For some of these, I just did the ends without the stick, without that little diagonal line. And then some of them towards the middle, I just did the little diagonal pieces without the diagonal line as well. So that one I did just to fill it up a little bit more. So that's kind of an artistic choice you can make for yourself if you want the dandelion to be fuller or not as full. And then I also went in and added some more grass blades in the bottom area. Next, I will be demonstrating how I did the Ladybug. So I used the Naphthol Crimson. Freshen that up if you need to. If it got all dry by now, you can freshen that up on your palette. And I switched to a number 4 round brush, so it's a smaller round brush. And so this little ladybug is crawling up our stem. So I did a little oval shape with the red. Nice thick coat of paint. You may have to dry this and add a second coat if your red is not giving good coverage in that area. A lot of times red tends to be like a translucent color. And then if you want to, it's a little bit advanced, but if you want to add a little highlight on that little tiny oval we did, you could take the white, mix it with your red to make it lighter, and then stroke on the left part some curved strokes to make that part a little bit lighter on the left. And then I added a teeny tiny bit more white on the left as well to make it extra brighter on the left. So there's our red base of our ladybug, and because it's such a tiny bug to paint, I'm going to use a black POSCA pen for the head, the antlers, and the legs. So I did a little circle for his head, and then I'm going to do his little antenna. Might have called them antlers just now. 2 little diagonal lines for antennae. We probably wouldn't see all 6 of his legs. I can do one leg, and the legs are kind of going down and then going outwards. And maybe we can see a few more. I think I just did 4 right there. It's such a tiny area. And then I can do the black spots. And then I can go in with my white. So back to a paintbrush, I'm going to do white, do little white dots on his head. So little tiny white on the tip of the brush, little white dots right here, one right here, one right here. If you look at a real ladybug, they have these little white spots on the head area. And then if you want, you can very, very subtly add another highlight right there at the top. But that's as much detail as we're going to go in for that ladybug. Almost looks realistic. And then I'm going to do another little ladybug that is on top of one of our seeds. So the same exact process, only it's going this way. So starting with the red, painting an oval shape. And then going in and doing the highlights on the top with the white, so mixing some white with red and going back on the top. Do a little tiny stroke at the top, and then you can add a little bit more white on the top of that. If you need to, like, use a hair dryer or blow dryer to dry that before doing your little black details, especially the spots, you can do that, but mine dried relatively fast. And then going back with the POSCA pen and doing your head and antennae, spots, and legs. And just like with our other ladybug, we may not see all 6 legs, so I did 4 that would be visible, and then I did the little spots, and then I'll go back with my white paintbrush and do the little white dots on his head and perhaps another highlight on the body. And that is it. This is the conclusion of how to paint wishful dandelions on an 11 by 14 inch canvas with acrylics. Hope you enjoyed this fun spring design painting. Thanks for watching, and thanks for painting with me.